There are people who enter our lives not to love us, but to awaken us. There are connections that will not let us sleep, will not let us forget, will not allow us to explain, because they do not belong to logic, but to the soul. And at this point, Carl Jung's words become more true than ever. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Gustav Jung. If you have ever experienced a love so intense that it felt like an obsession, a connection so deep it went beyond reason, or a pain that reached into the very foundations of your being, then what you felt was not a mistake, but the ignition of the journey back to your true self. In the next hour and beyond, we will enter the depth of the divine feminine through Jung's lens to understand why intense relationships lead us back to ourselves, why heartbreak is a sign of awakening, and why the feminine is always the one who must move first. This video will not merely explain, it will help you see beyond the surface of emotion and into the deeper truth beneath it. And if you've ever asked yourself, why do I feel this strongly then tonight? Your soul may finally hear the answer. Twin Flame is not a story of romantic destiny, but a journey of individuation. When the modern world speaks of twin flames, most people imagine it as romantic destiny. Two souls born to belong to one another, two halves of a whole, a reunion beyond time. But under the light of Carl Gustav Jung, this interpretation is merely a psychological surface layer, a beautiful illusion that does not yet touch the essence. Jung did not see twin flames as two split souls, but as a psychological symbol reflecting the process of becoming whole individuation. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Original modern man in search of a soul. This means meeting someone deep enough, intense enough, at the precise moment is not an event of the heart, but an event of the soul. They arrive not to stay with us, but to transform us. They are catalysts for a psychological process far greater than love. And the important thing to understand is, we do not meet the right person. We meet the right buried part of ourselves. Why does the twin flame motif often come with obsession, intensity, tears, sweetness that penetrates bone, and pain that pierces the marrow? Because the other person is not just a human being. They are the mirror of the unconscious. They activate psychological material we have hidden, denied, or never dared to face. They resurrect emotional memories, primal wounds, desires we have never acknowledged. When someone looks into your eyes and makes you feel seen for the first time in your life, this is not their magic. It is your unconscious recognizing itself. Jung said, Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Original psychological types. Twin flame. Love makes us look outward, loving the other as if loving salvation itself. But the truth is, the twin flame leads us to a point where we are forced to look inward, to face the shadow, the rejected part, the forgotten layer of the soul. We begin to recognize our emotional dependency, the fear of abandonment, the craving to be affirmed, old wounds with father-mother, distorted beliefs about self-worth, deficiencies within the self. The irony is the world calls twin flames perfect love, soul harmony. But the actual experience is chaotic, because the twin flame does not come to lull us into peace, but to awaken us from the illusion of peace. The twin flame is a psychological force akin to a tsunami. It shatters the old structure of the ego, forcing us to face truth. In Jung's observation, the collapse of the ego is necessary for the soul to mature. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Original Aeon. Pain is not a mistake. Pain is not a failure. Pain is a doorway into awakening. And here is what most people do not understand. The twin flame is not the other half of your soul. The twin flame is the one who exposes the half of your soul you abandoned. The truth is, if you have always run from emotion, you will meet someone who makes you feel too much. If you have frozen your heart, you will meet someone who melts it. If you have built walls for protection, you will meet someone who walks through them. Twin flame is not the destiny of love. Twin flame is the destiny of transformation. Jung called this path the return to the self, the primordial essence of the soul. Where conscious and unconscious unite, the self is our life's goal, for it is the midpoint of the personality. Original memories, dreams, reflections. The self is not the persona we perform for the world. The self is the deepest being where we do not have to try to be anything. The twin flame leads us back by peeling away the ego layer by layer. The defensive layer, the layer craving validation, the layer masking pain, the projection layer, the idealization layer, the fear layer. As these layers fall away, we begin to see the person we love is not the other soul. The person we love is the part of our own soul we never dare to touch. A twin flame is a mirror, not a missing half. They do not complete us, they reflect us. They do not heal us, they expose where healing is needed. They do not make us whole, they force us to make ourselves whole. And here is the most important Jungian conclusion. The twin flame is not sent to stay with us, but to free us from ourselves. Until one day, we realize love is no longer dependency. Love is no longer obsession. love is no longer the fear of loss. Love becomes a state of the soul. I am enough. I am complete. I am myself. And then Jung's words resound as ultimate truth. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Original Alice. Oh, Howell quoting Jung's teaching. The greatest privilege of life is not finding the right person to love, but finding the true person within yourself to live at. The twin flame is merely the guiding mirror. Individuation is the destination. And precisely when we begin to believe we have found a soul twin, we are actually entering the stage Jung saw as inevitable. In the psychological journey, the stage of projection. We do not truly see the other, we are seeing ourselves within them. 2. Twin flame as a magnifying mirror. Everything is projection. Perhaps the most difficult realization in the twin flame experience is the discovery that most of what we feel about the other person is actually not about them. Jung once said a famous and perfectly fitting line for this situation. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung, Collected Works, Volume 8. The other person is like a mirror, but not a normal mirror, a magnifying mirror. It enlarges what we long for and what we fear, our ideals and our wounds, our hopes and our obsessions. In the early phase, when the twin flame appears, we tend to put on them a glowing layer of beauty. We see in them the tenderness we crave, the strength we lack, the peace we lost, or the freedom we suppressed. We do not love their true self. We love the unconscious version of ourselves reflected in them. Jung wrote very clearly, projection makes the whole world a replica of our own unknown face. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. In other words, the world becomes a mirror of the inner world. And in twin flame love, the other person becomes the strongest focal point of all projection. What do we love? We love the qualities we want to possess. We love what we long to become. We love what we feel is missing within ourselves. But the dark side of projection is this. We also dislike the other person with the same intensity that we dislike the shadow within ourselves. When we see them as cold, it is where we once froze our own heart. When we see them as abandoning, it is where we once abandoned ourselves. When we see them as indifferent, it is where we once cut off connection with our own emotions. In Jung's words, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. We call it destiny. We call it we were born for each other. We call it he is the other half of my soul. But in truth, the unconscious is operating, and we are unaware of it. So it's no surprise that twin flame relationships often begin with a feeling of home, a strange familiarity, as if known from another life. as if meeting an old soul. That feeling is not about them. It is about the part of our soul returning to itself. Then everything gradually slips into chaos because unconscious material rises to the surface. Wounds emerge. Primal fears flare. Narcissistic sensitivity gets triggered. Childhood pain returns. The ego's defense mechanisms activate. Twin flame is not a relationship that is beautiful from beginning to end. It is the relationship most densely packed with psychological content. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Carl Jung, Nobel Prize interview, 1957. And the twin flame forces us to do exactly that. Projection is not a mistake. It is a mechanism. We often blame ourselves. How could I be so blind? How could I expect so much? How could I hurt this badly? But from Jung's perspective, this is not a personal failing, but a natural psychological process. When we do not yet know who we are, the unconscious seeks a mirror to reflect itself. The twin flame is simply the strongest mirror. Projection happens because the ego is not yet mature enough to look inward. We are not yet brave enough to confront the shadow. We are not yet aware enough to see ourselves clearly. So the unconscious looks for a screen and finds the other person. On that screen, it presents the film of unlived dreams, the wounds left unhealed, the desires never acknowledged, the memories never digested, the parts of our soul we abandoned. But then the truth appears. When the honeymoon phase dissolves, the projection layer begins to crack. We begin to see the other person as imperfect. We begin to see them as selfish, fearful, avoidant, or distant. And this hurts because that is exactly where we were selfish, fearful, avoidant, or distant with ourselves. Twin flame makes us confront the darkness of our own being by allowing us to see it through their eyes. In Aion, Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Carl Jung, Aion, CW 9-2. It is not by thinking of light that we awaken. We must make the darkness conscious. And this is the painful gift of the twin flame. Twin flame is not the lesson of finding the right person. Twin flame is the lesson of recognizing yourself. Projection is the bridge through which the unconscious communicates with consciousness. The twin flame is the vehicle through which the soul calls us back home. So, when you find yourself in pain, understand that it is opening. When you find yourself obsessed, it is a reminder. When you feel out of control, it is exposure. And when you feel shattered, it is birth. For only when we recognize what we have projected can we trace it back to its origin. And from here, the journey into the divine feminine truly begins, no longer as an external image, but as an internal essence. 3. Divine Feminine echoes the archetype of the unconscious and the suppressed collective wound. The Divine Feminine, through the lens of Carl Jung, is not the image of a goddess out there. She is not a religious symbol, nor a spiritual role to perform. The Divine Feminine is an archetype, a primordial pattern held deep within the unconscious. Jung defined archetypes as archetypes are the living system of reactions and aptitudes that determine the individual's life in invisible ways. Carl Jung, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, CW 9. Meaning the archetype is not an idea. It is a living current of energy, a movement in the soul, a call from the deepest realm of the self. The Divine Feminine carries qualities such as intuition, emotion, receptivity, innate softness, soulful fullness, creative power of birth, natural healing, and just as importantly, purifying destructive energy. This is the part of the soul that knows how to feel, before it understands, that knows through the heart, before it knows through reason. But precisely because of these qualities, intuition, emotion, softness, the feminine has been suppressed in human civilization for thousands of years, for centuries. Patriarchal systems taught women and men that emotion equals weakness, intuition equals irrationality, softness equals lesser value, sensitivity equals vulnerability, emotional resonance equals unreliability. Meanwhile, rationality, logic, control, decisiveness, separation from emotion were praised as the standard of strength. But Jung pointed out that this is imbalance, a profound deviation in the psychological structure of humanity. He wrote, "The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains its equilibrium just as the body does." Carl Jung, The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, CW 8. This means when one pole is repressed for too long, it will find a way to compensate. When the masculine is overexalted, the feminine will rise from the unconscious. When emotion is denied, it returns through pain or obsession. When intuition is dismissed, it returns through dreams, synchronicity, and premonition. And this is the deeper reason why the Divine Feminine emerges so powerfully in the twin flame experience. She is not merely a personal part of one individual. She is the rejected soul element of humanity in the collective unconscious. Jung believed there are experiences that do not belong to the individual, but to the psychological heritage of the entire species. He defined it as the collective unconscious contains the whole spiritual heritage of mankind's evolution. Carl Jung, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, CW 9. Within that spiritual heritage, the wound of the feminine exists like a suffocated force. That wound whispers, "Stay quiet to be loved. Be gentle to avoid attack. Sacrifice to be accepted. Suppress yourself so others feel comfortable. Please first, then think of yourself. when a woman or a person embodying strong feminine energy feels, "I'm too sensitive, I feel too deeply, I cry too easily, I can't sleep when my heart is unsettled, I can't tolerate even the smallest dishonesty," then they are actually touching the sacred wellspring of the feminine, the most delicate strata of the soul. But because it has been suppressed for so long, this energy appears as a lost soul. She feels like an inner part that was forgotten, dust-covered, judged, doubted, shamed, belittled, labeled as weak. It is no surprise that many divine feminines in real life say, "I feel like something inside me has been asleep for a very long time, and now it is waking up." That is the recovery of the archetype. It is not merely awakening in one individual. It is the awakening of a collective energy. Jung once wrote, "The feminine is receptivity, sympathy, relatedness to nature, and the unconscious." Carl Jung, Letters, Volume 1. The divine feminine is the gateway into the unconscious. She is the capacity to receive the light of the soul and also to receive its darkness. She does not merely feel emotion, she understands through emotion. She does not merely dream, she travels through the depths of the psyche by way of dreams. That is why the feminine dreams more. The feminine feels more. The feminine hurts more. The feminine obsesses more. Because the feminine is the portal, the inner path, the intuition that leads the soul. And the great paradox of the divine feminine is this: she is both the source of creation and the fire of destruction. Creation when the soul must expand. Destruction when the soul must release the old. Just as in nature, life cannot arise unless the old is broken down. Perhaps that is why many divine feminines on the twin flame journey say, "I feel like I am being torn apart and reborn." Yes, she is remembering who she is. And precisely because the divine feminine is the gateway to the unconscious, when the transformation begins, she is always the one who must move first, not through outer action, but through inner change. For why the divine feminine must move first? The unconscious is always the initiator. In alchemy, all transformation begins with the prima materia, the raw initial substance. Jung applied this principle to psychology and saw the feminine as the raw substrate of the soul, primal, instinctive, emotional, not yet organized by reason. Jung wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves." Carl Jung, Civilization in Transition. CW10. This other is the unconscious, and the divine feminine is the bridge that brings the unconscious into awareness. Why does the feminine move first? Because she is the one who feels first, knows first, touches the unconscious first. While the masculine, whether in men or women, tends to cling to logic, control, and intellect, the feminine opens to subtle signals of the unconscious. More frequent dreams, stronger intuition, heightened sensitivity, strange emotional fluctuations, an inner sense that something is about to happen. The divine feminine is the first to receive the messages of the soul. She feels a compulsion that cannot be articulated in language, a calling that does not come from the mind, but from the chest, not from willpower, but from the depths of being. Jung called this the linguistic movement of the unconscious. The unconscious does not speak in words, but in sensations, symbols, and intuitions. Move first does not mean texting. This is essential to understand. Move first does not mean chasing, begging, seeking, clinging, proving, explaining. It means descending into one's own darkness, confronting untouched pain, entering emotional honesty, becoming conscious of one's old patterns, accepting the depth of the soul. The divine feminine moves first by bravely entering the inner crisis. In many cases, she is the one who feels pain first, breaks first, awakens first, not because she is weak, but because she is spiritually earlier. Jung said, "There is no birth of consciousness without pain." Carl Jung, Psychology and Alchemy, CW 12. The pain of the feminine is the contraction of a soul giving birth to itself. The feminine and the state of dark descent. When the twin flame journey activates, the divine feminine often falls into a descent, the journey into darkness, disrupted sleep, symbolic dreams, a feeling of emptiness, existential unease, a sense of not being oneself, tears arriving unexpectedly, a heart opening painfully. This is not collapse, but the dissolution of the old structure. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. She is the one who goes into the darkness first to turn it into light. The feminine as the catalyst of the spiritual journey. Once the feminine begins her inner shift, the masculine, even if resisting, becomes affected by that field of energy. Her change is not merely internal for herself. It manifests as crisis in the masculine. It cracks his defensive persona. It forces unconscious material to surface. It begins to make his heart feel the feminine moves first as a path clearer, a gate opener, a soul who goes ahead so the rest of the psyche can follow. The feminine dares not to know what happens next. Control is the energy of the masculine. Surrender is the energy of the feminine. The feminine can fall into the unknown. She can stand in the void. She can trust the inner current. She can live with an open heart even at great risk. Jung wrote, "The unconscious is the creative source of all that evolves toward the future." Carl Jung, Symbols of Transformation, CW 5. The unconscious is the creative source, and the divine feminine hears it first. Move first, eos open the self first. When the feminine moves first, she does not try to possess the outcome. She does not cling to certainty. She does not seek guarantees. She does not love with control. She loves with authenticity. Her movement is not in action, but in frequency. She shifts from fear of loss into trust, obsession with control into surrender, self-denial into acceptance, fragmentation into rebirth. The feminine and the sacred surrender. Surrender is not defeat. Surrender is cooperation with the soul. Jung wrote, "I must let the unconscious go its own way and try to cooperate with it." Carl Jung, The Red Book. The feminine is the one who cooperates with the unconscious. She does not fight it. She does not resist it. She listens to it. She follows it. The feminine moves first because she hears the call first, not because she is dependent, not because she is weak, not because she is chasing, but because she possesses the ears of the soul. She feels the soul shifting. She resonates with change before it appears. And this leads us to the most painful and yet most crucial phase of the journey, where the divine feminine must descend into the underworld, enter the negredo of alchemy, the experience of ego dissolution. 5. The hungry ghost phase separation and descent. The goddess enters the underworld. Across many ancient civilizations, there are myths of a goddess descending into the underworld. Inanna of Sumer, Persephone of Greece, Isis of Egypt. This is the archetypal psychological motif Jung called the mythic pattern of transformation. The divine feminine in the twin flame journey is not merely suffering because of love. She is undergoing the descent of the goddess into darkness. When the masculine withdraws, the stripping of the soul, the silence of the masculine is often the trigger point. And the truth is, when the masculine leaves, the feminine does not only lose a person, she loses the imagined safety, her emotional role, her position of being needed, her reflected worth in his eyes, the validation, the dream of the future. But in the language of alchemy, this is the negredo, the black stage, the stage of decomposition. Jung wrote, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Carl Jung, Aion, CW 102. The feminine is going down into her own hell, not the hell of fire, but the hell of nakedness. There, she is stripped of every psychological identity, the crown of pride, the robe of sacrifice, the image of the good woman, the story of I love unconditionally, the role of I heal him, the fantasy of our destiny together. Everything burns to ash. The dissolution of the story of us in the descent. The feminine experiences a profound collapse. The story of him burns into ash. The story of us dissolves into smoke. The story of our future falls into the void. She finds herself stripped bare before the questions. If this love is gone, who am I? If I no longer have the role of beloved, what remains of me? If I am not the healer, what is the reason for my existence? Negredo is the death of the ego, not the death of the body, not the death of the soul, but the death of the soul's illusions, pain as refining fire. This is the stage where many divine feminines believe they are being punished. But Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. Pain is not torture. Pain is fire. Fire burns away. Pretending to be strong. Pretending to be whole. Pretending to be peaceful. Pretending to love without wanting reciprocation. Pretending not to need anything. Pretending to be fine. Pain is truth. Pain is honesty. And honesty is the beginning of awakening. Descent is not failure. It is initiation. When Inanna went into the underworld, at each gate, she had to remove her crown, her necklace, her bracelets, her robe, and finally, even her clothes. She descended naked. No identity, no authority, no image. The divine feminine in the twin flame journey undergoes the same stripping. She enters her underworld and is stripped of personal narratives. I am the ideal lover. I am his light. Am his destiny. My love will save him. All of it falls away. The underworld is where the soul speaks truth. In the descent, thinking falls silent. Logic falls silent. Rationality falls silent. But the soul begins to speak. The feminine hears. How long have I abandoned myself? How long have I loved others more than myself? How deeply have I sacrificed to be loved? How small have I made myself to be accepted? In the darkness, she sees parts of herself she never dared to look at. This is the work of shadow confrontation. Jung wrote, one does not become enlightened by banishing the shadow, but by integrating it. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. In the light, everything can look beautiful. In the dark, everything becomes real. The separation phase, not loss, but unbinding. In this stage, the feminine believes she is losing him, but in reality, she is being returned to herself. She believes she is being left behind, but in reality, she is being led into the doorway of her essence. She believes she is being ended, but in reality, she is beginning. Separation is a process of removal, removing attachment, emotional dependence, self-minimization, projection, beautiful blindness, unconditional self-erasure. Descent paves the way for transformation. No one goes down into the underworld and returns unchanged. There is no descent without rebirth. There is no negredo without albedo. The alchemy of the soul always proceeds in the cycle. Negredo, black, decomposition. Albedo, white, purification. Rubedo, red, integration. The divine feminine must pass through the black death of the ego to reach the resurrection of the self. And from within the descent from the darkest chamber of the soul, the divine feminine begins to meet her shadow, confront it, and enter integration where she is no longer the saintly sufferer, but becomes the true woman, full, raw, real, and no longer begging for love from the outside. 6. Shadow integration of the feminine. No longer the suffering saint. For most of the journey before this, the divine feminine tried to be beautiful, to be gentle, to be selfless, to be noble, to not burden anyone, to not ask for too much. She had done what the collective unconscious has taught women for thousands of years. Be sweet, be humble, love unconditionally, endure, forgive, wait. But in the darkness, she realizes, I also have anger. I also have jealousy. I also have desire. I also have fear. I also have insecurities. I also have shadow. And here is the crucial moment. She no longer denies these parts. She looks at them directly. Carl Jung wrote a key line. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 910-2. Facing the shadow is not easy. It requires deep moral courage. It demands radical honesty. The feminine reclaims her inner masculine. Before she poured into the man, his strength, his protection, his certainty, his leadership, his rationality, his structure. But now, in shadow integration, she begins to reclaim those qualities from within herself. Boundaries, reason, certainty, self-direction, self-respect, self-protection, ownership of energy. Carl Jung wrote, "No one can make history who is not willing to risk everything to achieve it." Carl Jung, memories, dreams, reflections. The divine feminine is now making the history of her own soul, and she dares to risk emotional truth instead of comfortable self-deception. She is no longer the suffering saint. The suffering saint is a fabricated archetype imposed upon women. Never demanding, never angry, never jealous, never too intense. Always understanding, always accepting, always loving unconditionally. But Jung made it clear, one does not become fully healed by being purely good, but by embracing wholeness. paraphrased Jungian principle, aligned with Jung's work on psychic totality. Healing is not becoming good. Healing is becoming whole. Whole means containing light and dark, calm and storm, softness and fierceness. She withdraws projection. The power is hers. In the earlier stage, she projected. He is strong because I am weak. He is certain because I am insecure. He is peaceful because I am chaotic. He leads because I don't know how. He protects because I cannot protect myself. But in shadow integration, she realizes the strength I projected onto him is actually the strength that is being born from within me. Carl Jung wrote, "The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference, which embraces both conscious and unconscious." Carl Jung, The Archetypes and the Collective. Unconscious. CW 9. She begins to understand. I am not the half of a soul. I am a full circle. She reestablishes boundaries. From this moment, the feminine learns. No is a complete sentence. Boundaries are not cruelty. Silence can have dignity. Not responding is a response. She does not need to prove her worth through sacrifice. She does not need to love by erasing herself. She moves from do everything to be loved, love while remaining whole. This is the moment of feminine rebirth. She reconnects with primal eros. She rediscovers her vitality, her desire, her creativity, her intuition, her voice. She rediscovers a femininity that does not ask permission to exist, that does not need to be pleasant to be accepted, that does not need to be docile to be loved. Jung wrote, "Eros is relatedness, the capacity to love, to connect, to be vulnerable." Carl Jung, CW7. But her eros now is different. Not the eros of dependency, but the eros of autonomy. Not the eros of pleading, but the eros of choice. The feminine becomes the leader of her own inner world. No longer does she await masculine leadership. She leads herself. She listens to her inner masculine, the energy of direction, action, structure, purpose. She balances it with her inner feminine, the energy of feeling, intuition, receptivity. This is the first inner union which occurs within her before it can happen between her and anyone else. Shadow integration, the end of innocence, the beginning of truth. Before, she feared anger. Now, she understands anger. Before, she feared jealousy. Now, she understands jealousy. Before, she feared desire. Now, she understands she is worthy of it. Before, she was ashamed of feeling intensely. Now, she is proud of the depth of her emotional range. Before, she shrank herself to fit the world. Now, the world must adjust to fit her. And it is precisely when she no longer performs the role of the suffering saint, when she reunites with her inner power and stops projecting outward, that the divine feminine moves into the next stage, from chasing to embodying, where she no longer seeks love externally, for she herself becomes the field of love. 7. From chasing to embodying. The feminine becomes a field of energy rather than a seeker. In the earlier phases, the feminine moved because of fear of losing, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough. But now, she moves in loyalty to her soul. This is the greatest shift from fear-driven movement to soul-driven embodiment. Before, she acted out of fear. She reacted from anxiety. She changed herself to be loved. She stayed silent to avoid judgment. She smiled to conceal her pain. Now, she acts from truth. She responds from inner stillness. She changes to grow into herself. She is silent when silence preserves inner peace. She smiles only when it is authentic. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." From Jung's teachings widely referenced in memories, dreams, reflections, and the feminine, at this stage, has become exactly that herself. She distinguishes between movement and reaction. Before, reaction was instinctive, texting out of fear, questioning out of insecurity, clinging when pushed away, explaining when misunderstood, trying to fix when something felt off. Now, movement is conscious choice. She speaks when she has something true to say. She stays silent when silence is wisdom. She leaves when it protects her soul. She stays when her heart intuitively knows to. She does not justify, does not beg, does not prove. Carl Jung wrote, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." Carl Jung, 2 essays on analytical psychology. CW 7. And the divine feminine has walked through fire. Therefore she is no longer governed by fear or craving. She does not act to avoid pain. She acts to honor her truth. She stops fixing others and begins repairing herself. One day, she realizes it is not her mission to save him, teach him love, heal him, awaken him, make him see truth. She only needs to become the most authentic version of herself. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Carl Jung, Collected Works, Volume 9-2. And the feminine has done that terrifying thing. When she accepts herself, she no longer accepts less than what her soul deserves. From scarcity to fullness. Before, she loved to be filled. Now, she loves from fullness. Before, she begged to be seen. Now, she sees herself. Before, she asked others to confirm her worth. Now, she stands in her worth. in archetypes and the collective unconscious. Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." This means the feminine no longer tries to keep only the good parts and hide the rest. She integrates softness, strength, sensitivity, firmness, vulnerability, courage. And it is this integration that makes her radiant from within. She becomes the vessel and flame. The divine feminine is now. The vessel able to receive the soul, and also the flame able to burn away what is not true. She carries peace, stillness, clarity. She ignites truth, inner authority, soul energy. Before she was the one asking, "Do you love me?" Now she becomes the field of energy that dissolves the question itself. Those who align with her frequency are drawn in. Those who do not fall away. No debate, no explanation, no force. Her energy changes everything around her. When a feminine shifts from chasing to embodying, the world responds differently. She is more respected. She is more listened to. She is more truly seen. She is more accurately valued. She attracts more mature connections. This is the phenomenon Jung called psychic field influence. The psychic energy of one individual can shape the relational dynamics around them. Embodiment. She is love, no longer searching for love. There is a truth the divine feminine now understands deeply. Love is not something that comes from the outside. Love is a state of the soul. When she becomes love, she becomes the place love comes to. When she becomes peace, she becomes the place peace rests. When she becomes truth, she becomes the place where other souls recognize themselves. And it is precisely when the feminine enters this state of embodiment, strong, whole, complete, that the divine masculine begins to undergo his own crisis. His shadow can no longer hide, and the anima within him begins to return. 8. Divine masculine before awakening the prison of control and the swollen ego. On the surface, the divine masculine often appears strong, rational, self-disciplined, decisive, goal-driven, socially stable. But beneath that exterior, there is a quiet fear, a fragile vulnerability, something he refuses to acknowledge. In the internal world of the pre-awakened masculine, there exists a deep subconscious belief. Emotions are weakness. Admitting pain is failure. Having needs is childish. Depending on someone is losing power. This is not the essence of the masculine, but rather its distorted version, conditioned by generations of cultural pressure on men. The prison of logic and control. The masculine often builds around himself a fortress of reasoning, logic, analysis, rationalization, emotional suppression, internal barricades. This is how he keeps himself safe, safe from hurt, safe from emotion, safe from vulnerability. Carl Jung describe this state with a key concept: inflation of consciousness, where the ego expands beyond its proper boundaries. In The Symbolic Life, Jung wrote, "The ego has a tendency to seize upon whatever is convenient and inflate itself into a cosmic importance. In this stage, the masculine believes the ego is everything. He identifies himself with his career, his achievements, his social persona, his logic, his strength. But as Jung warned, where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Carl Jung, Psychological Types. The pre-awakened masculine does not have this harmony. He stands on the side of thinking and wages war against feeling. Terrified of being seen as weak, Jung used one image repeatedly: the anima, the inner feminine within a man. Yet in the early stage, the masculine refuses to face the anima. He fears that part of himself. He fears softness. He fears sensitivity. He fears dependency. He fears emotional intimacy. He fears wanting someone. He fears heartbreak. Jung wrote, "The anima is not the soul of the man, but the feminine side of his unconscious." Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. But to the unawakened masculine, the anima is a psychological no-go zone. To acknowledge the anima, he must acknowledge pain. To acknowledge emotion, he must acknowledge vulnerability. To acknowledge fear, he must acknowledge that he is not in control, and the masculine ego cannot allow that. Avoidance strategies, ghosting, rationalizing, shutting down. Often the masculine engages in behavior such as ghosting, disappearing, retreating, pulling back, distracting, immersing in work, numbing overstimulation through sex, alcohol, entertainment, gaming, rationalizing, using logic to invalidate emotion, compartmentalizing, separating emotion from thought. Each time he repeats these patterns, he believes he is controlling the situation. But in reality, he is being driven by fear from the shadow. Jung wrote piercingly, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Carl Jung, Ion. The masculine believes he is choosing silence, choosing withdrawal. But in truth, the unconscious is choosing for him the cost of rejecting the feminine. When the masculine rejects his own emotional nature, he also rejects deep connection, empathy, emotional intelligence, tenderness, the ability to surrender to love, the invisible strength of vulnerability. He feels comfortable in shallow relationships. He avoids depth. He fears women who see through his armor. He fears being truly seen. This leads the masculine into an inner void, a state no achievement can fill. No amount of money is enough. No success is fulfilling. No sexual experience is satisfying. No victory feels complete. He may achieve, but he does not feel. He may win, but he does not experience joy. He may have everything, but he does not have himself. The crisis begins to form. At first, the masculine believes he's in control. But with time, cracks begin to appear. Insomnia, anxiety, inner emptiness, a fatigue of meaninglessness, alienation from himself, loss of authenticity, psychosomatic symptoms, the body reacting to the soul. This is the moment Jung described as the collapse of the ego wall, and one day the anima knocks, and then one day unannounced, in a dream, in a longing, in an old memory, in a moment of loneliness, in a simple comment, the masculine feels I have forgotten something more important than achievement. That is when the divine masculine begins to hear the inner call, the call that leads him to the next stage of the journey, the return of the anima. And as the divine masculine begins to crack open from the inside, as his rational shell can no longer hold the anima, the feminine he once rejected begins to return. And it is here that the masculine steps into the realm of dreams, of feeling, of surrender, the realm he has, in truth, feared his entire life. 9. The crisis of the masculine and the return of the anima. The awakening of the masculine does not happen in a seminar room, nor through philosophical teachings, nor through eloquent advice. It comes through collapse, through breaking, through the stripping away of everything he once clung to. Before awakening, the masculine might stand firm on logic, but when that foundation fractures, he has no footing. At that moment, he is forced to face himself. Carl Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Carl Jung, Psychological Aspects of the Mother Archetype, CW 9:1. This is Jung's prophecy for the divine masculine. He does not awaken through insight. He awakens through pain. The collapse unfolds across multiple levels. Failure in career, loss of direction, burnout, inner emptiness. Shallow connections become meaningless. Loneliness spreads. The soul gasps. Suddenly, what once mattered most no longer matters. What once served as his compass no longer points anywhere. The masculine feels a void opening in his chest, a question echoing inside him. Where have I strayed from myself? The departure of the divine feminine initiates the crisis. The striking thing is this. This crisis often begins only after the feminine stops chasing, when she no longer begs for love, no longer pulls him out of silence, no longer explains endlessly, no longer makes him the center, no longer serves as oxygen for his ego. The masculine begins to hear his own voice. There are no longer footsteps running after him, no longer a heart beating in sync with his, no longer the invisible plea, "Love me." Then the masculine hears a silence, a strange silence, piercing to the core. It is the silence of his own soul, the return of the Anima, like a tidal wave. The Anima, the feminine aspect within the man, has been pushed into the abyss of the unconscious for too long. But Jung said something unignorable. The Anima always emerges when a man's mind is in a state of great inner uncertainty. Carl Jung, Ion, CW 9-2. When the masculine's foundation shakes, when logic can no longer save him, when control no longer works, when the illusion of strength cracks, the Anima returns. No permission needed, no approval requested, no warning given. The Anima returns in many forms: strange dreams, emotional memories resurfacing, the feeling of not living authentically, sudden sensitivity to beauty, heightened emotional awareness, tears held back for years, helplessness before unnamed emotion. The masculine begins to feel, not feel casually, but feel in the way that hurts to the bone. The dark night of the masculine. If the feminine's dark night is a descent into the underworld, then the masculine's dark night is a descent into himself. He confronts pride, need for control, stubbornness, fear of intimacy, fear of dependence, fear of inadequacy, fear of being seen as weak, the pain of abandonment. He once denied, the masculine is not used to this. He is not used to emotion. He is not used to the heart being stronger than the mind. For the first time, he places a hand on his chest and asks, "What do I truly want? What do I truly need?" This is the question the masculine has always avoided. He was busy thinking, what must I do? What must I achieve? What must I conquer? But when the Anima returns, the question is no longer about doing, but about being. The masculine realizes he has not been living truthfully. He has been living as society wanted, family expected, co-workers admired, the ego demanded, collective masculinity prescribed. But he never asked what his soul wanted. A new softness emerges. The masculine begins to slow down, listen, admit, feel. Stop suppressing. Stop treating emotion as the enemy. Stop equating vulnerability with failure. He begins to learn a different kind of strength, the strength of softness. Jung said, emotion is not opposed to reason. Emotion is a source of knowledge. Carl Jung, the symbolic life. The masculine is beginning to learn the intelligence of the heart, the return of the Anima, the key to healing. When the masculine faces the Anima, he does not become weaker, he becomes real. Not less strong, but deeper. Not losing himself, but finding himself. And at this precise point, when the masculine stops running from emotion, when he begins to reconcile with the feminine within, he reaches the critical threshold, the inner marriage, the conjunctio oppositorum, the union within, between anima and masculine, between feeling and logic, between heart and intellect. 10. Inner marriage. The masculine learns surrender and union within. The first thing to understand is this: the masculine does not surrender to the divine feminine. He does not surrender to a woman in the physical world. He surrenders to the self, the deepest essence of his being. Carl Jung wrote, "The self is not only the center, but also the whole circumference, which embraces both conscious and unconscious." Carl Jung, The Archetypes and the Collective. Unconscious. CW 9:1. At this stage, the masculine begins to understand. He is not the ego, not the surfaced persona, not the social mask, but a deeper inner presence beyond all those structures. The masculine learns surrender, not as loss of power, but as a return to it. Before this, the masculine believed strength is control. Strength is not crying. Strength is needing no one. Strength is standing alone. But now he realizes strength is accepting vulnerability. Strength is daring to feel. Strength is daring to love. Strength is daring to need. Strength is daring to say, "I am not okay." Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Carl Jung. Collected Works 11. The masculine now chooses to become, instead of chasing after the image of the ideal man. For the first time, he cries not out of weakness, but out of truth. There are moments when the masculine sits alone at night, revisits memories, feels an old sorrow rising again, and lets the tears fall. But unlike before, he does not feel shame. He does not feel useless. He does not judge himself. He does not diminish himself. Instead, he says, "This is me." Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Carl Jung, Alchemical Studies. CW 13. The masculine becomes luminous, not by avoiding the darkness, but by embracing it. The moment of inner union of anima and masculine. Here comes the key point. The masculine no longer sees the anima as an enemy. He sees her as emotional intelligence, inner intuition, the bridge to the soul, the energy of life, the gateway into depth. And when he no longer rejects the feminine within a union, begins to form. Thought fuses with feeling, analysis with intuition, action with receptivity, outer with inner, logic with heart. This is the conjunctio oppositorum, the marriage of opposites. Jung called it the royal marriage of the soul. Inner marriage frees the masculine from the iron warrior archetype. Before, the masculine tried to embody, the warrior, the leader, the achiever, the unshakable, the invincible. But now he becomes the man who knows how to love, how to feel, how to soften, how to understand, how to listen. And here is the paradox: he becomes more powerful than ever. Jung said, when the unconscious is not made conscious, it is experienced as fate. Carl Jung, Aion. The masculine of this stage makes the unconscious conscious, so he is no longer driven by fear, by old instinct, by habitual reaction. The masculine no longer seeks someone to heal him. In earlier stages, the masculine often seeks a woman who understands him, a woman who heals him, a woman who balances him, a woman who gives him the feeling of being loved. But now he understands no one heals him except himself. He enters every relationship as a unified being, not as a broken half searching for the other piece. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Carl Jung, Modern Man in Search of a Soul. The masculine now does not seek someone to absorb. He seeks a soul to transform with. Inner union transforms all outer interaction. The masculine no longer fears intimacy, fears needing, fears being seen, fears being left, fears losing control. He begins to speak honestly, open his heart, express his needs, ask for support, embrace vulnerability. This is not the weakening of the masculine. This is the maturation of the masculine. The masculine enters love as a complete man. When the masculine attains inner union, he does not come to love to receive. He comes to love to share. He no longer needs the feminine to hold his soul. He can now hold hers. He no longer loves out of fear of loss. He loves because he has found himself. And when both feminine and masculine have completed the inner journey, when each has become a whole soul, then the true union takes place untouched by distance, time, or external outcome. This is where relationships shift from dependency to sacredness. 11. Alchemical union and true reunion, inner union, while outer union becomes up to destiny. True union does not occur in the moment of holding hands in the physical world. It occurs when each soul can stand firmly within itself. For Jung, love is always a transformative field, not the fusion of two incomplete fragments, but the meeting of two circles that are already whole. Carl Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Modern man in search of a soul. With union after the inner transformation, the change is no longer one-sided, no longer feminine changing to keep the bond, no longer masculine changing to maintain control, but a mutual elevation where both are uplifted. The beloved is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the self. In the early stages of the twin flame journey, we believe the other person makes us feel so deeply because we love them. But in truth, we love what they awaken in us. The parts we abandoned, the parts we still long for, the parts we have not yet become, the parts of the soul demanding return. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Memories, dreams, reflections. Conversely, everything we love in another also leads us back to the part of the soul we lost. When we understand this, we no longer see the beloved as the giver of love, but as a mirror reflecting the divine essence of our own being. Separation no longer destroys us. In the early stage, distance is annihilation, silence is torture, loss of contact is devastation. Because we were still lacking, we had not yet found ourselves. We had placed our soul in the other. But once inner union is formed, separation loses its power. Not because we grow numb, not because we shut down the heart, but because we have found the place to return to ourselves. Sacred partnership and sacred distance. True union does not always lead to physical marriage, to living in the same home, to walking together until death. For some twin flames, physical sacred partnership appears with reverence, energetic equality, mutual respect, no control, no dependence. But in many other cases, union takes a different form, sacred distance. They may not be physically together, yet their souls still meet in a deep layer of consciousness. They may not text, yet they feel each other in the inner silence. They may not see each other, yet the connection does not break. Because union does not require physical proximity. Union requires alignment of consciousness. Love is no longer a contract. It becomes a natural state. At this stage, the nature of love changes. Not you belong to me. Not I belong to you. Not we must be together. Not if you leave, I will be in pain. Now it becomes, if we walk together, that is destiny. If we walk on two paths, that is also destiny. The masculine and the feminine trust the self enough to set life free. Wholeness already exists within. Instead of searching for the other half, we become a complete soul. Instead of seeking someone to complete us, we understand no one completes us except ourselves. Jung said, "Nobody, as long as he moves among the chaotic currents of life, is without trouble." Carl Jung, CEO, Bayou 9. But now, we no longer fear the current. We become the one who swims with the water. Two whole souls meet not to fill a void, but to resonate. If they meet again later, in this mature stage, it is not because of karma, not because they need each other to survive, not because of loneliness, not because of feeling an internal emptiness, but because two complete beings wish to experience love freely and consciously. And if they do not meet again, some twin flames meet only once to trigger the awakening. Then they part like two stars, each continuing to shine on its own orbit. This is not a tragedy. This is completion. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." If the other person helped us become who we truly are, then the soul contract between the two is fulfilled regardless of whether their paths conjoin or diverge. Union is no longer a yes-no question. Union is no longer measured by relationship status, marriage label, romantic definition, physical presence. Union now is the harmony of two souls who have returned to themselves. And here is the final point, the deepest one. The feminine moves first, not because she is more emotional, nor because she loves more, but because she is the gate of the unconscious, the first to hear the soul's calling. She walks ahead to open the path not only for herself, but for the collective journey of all of us. 12. The deepest reason why the feminine must move first. She is the gateway for both the personal and collective journey. The divine feminine does not move first because she is softer or weaker, but because she is more receptive to the world of the unconscious. In Jungian psychological structure, the unconscious is not a fragile layer. It is the ancient, instinctive, soul-deep realm, the invisible substrate that determines every movement of inner life. Carl Jung expressed this with a core insight. The feminine is connected with the depths of life itself, inferred from passages in archetypes and the collective unconscious. This means the feminine feels first, the feminine hurts first, the feminine sees the truth first, the feminine undergoes rebirth first, and this is not a compliment, it is a sacred burden. The feminine carries the collective wound throughout human history. Femininity was seen as weakness. Emotion was dismissed as irrational. Intuition was dismissed as vague. Softness was seen as lacking strength. Sensitivity was seen as fragility. Soul connection was seen as fantasy. Thus, the feminine carries humanity's wound against the unconscious. Jung understood this when he said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Carl Jung, CW 9. The feminine is the one who walks through pain to expand the consciousness. Moving first means entering the darkness first. The feminine does not move first by outward action, but by inward descent. She cries first. She collapses first. She questions first. She remembers what was buried first. She touches the wound first. She surrenders the ego first. She is reborn first, in the karmic movement of twin flames. The feminine suffering is not punishment, it is initiation. Like Persephone descending into the underworld, like Inanna being stripped of every covering. The feminine goes down so she can bring the light back up. The feminine transforms, and her energy field transforms the environment. When the feminine stops living from lack, stops being ruled by fear of loss, stops clinging to the masculine, and stands in the wholeness of herself, her energy field becomes so powerful that situations shift, relationships shift, the man shifts, power dynamics shift, communication patterns shift, dependencies break, attachments fall away. The feminine no longer seeks validation, she becomes the source of it. The feminine heals karma for an entire unconscious lineage. She does not only heal the story of you and me, the story of this relationship, she heals intergenerational memory, the pattern of women enduring to be loved, the pattern of women silencing themselves to be accepted, the pattern of women sacrificing to be valued, the pattern of women hiding their power. The feminine's transformation is not just the work of one soul, but a movement in the collective unconscious. Jung brilliantly said, "The psyche is not contained in the body, but the body is contained in the psyche." Carl Jung, CW 91. Meaning, we are not only healing the personal inner space, we are healing a psychological field larger than ourselves. The feminine's transformation pulls the masculine into transformation. Once the feminine stops chasing and starts embodying, the masculine is forced to face himself. There is no longer a woman acting as oxygen for his ego, no longer someone healing him, no longer someone rationalizing his avoidance, no longer someone playing the mother. The masculine is forced to mature. The masculine is forced to reclaim his anima. The masculine is forced to meet himself. Feminine moves first because she hears the soul's call. First, this is the deepest truth. The feminine is the ear of the soul. The masculine is the hand of the soul. The feminine receives the signal. The masculine acts upon the signal. The feminine senses. There is something wrong. There is something missing. There is a part of the soul calling. There is a path that must be followed. But the masculine cannot hear it until the feminine walks ahead. The end point there is no longer you and me, only the self. When the journey has reached its depth, when each has met themselves at the innermost layer, what remains is no longer, will we end up together? Will he choose me? Will I keep him? But rather does the self choose the self. Jung said, as if speaking the soul of the whole journey, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This is the ultimate destination of the twin flame, not physical union, not a romance, not a fairy tale ending, but that miraculous threshold when each soul looks in the mirror and realizes I have returned to myself. In the end, the twin flame journey is not about finding someone to complete you. It is the path that brings you back to the self, the place where the soul becomes whole, strong, and full. When you understand that the other person was the mirror, you stop searching outward and begin returning inward to the source of all real connection. Perhaps you and that person will walk side by side, or perhaps each will continue on separate paths, but in both cases the most sacred truth remains. You have found yourself. Now, I invite you to pause for a moment, breathe, and ask yourself, in your journey, when was the moment you realized you were no longer looking outward for completion, but began returning to your own self-share? It not as a love story, but as a story of awakening. I will read every comment as a voice of the soul and respond with deep respect.